So 7x7 is the largest event they have official competitions for, and this means that it's the largest event where there is real incentive to make good and interesting hardware, although we have seen some pretty good, even bigger cubes in recent years. And deciding which is the best 7x7 on the market can be quite a challenge, because a lot of people use even pretty cheap ones, such as the MeiLong V2M, although I don't think anybody really uses it without heavy modding. I've heard of people doing like the Dorito mod, where they hollow it out a bit and stuff like that. But ultimately, I'd recommend this only as a budget 7x7. It's £15, and really, right now, I'd recommend people get, in that budget, the more recently released QiYi Warrior 7x7 UV. However, there have been a few issues with this, so be very careful. This one has a corner logo, which means it's not competition legal. I do not sell any ones with corner logos on my website. So, the two I have in stock currently have center logos. I recently received a new batch. However, I also received some in that shipment of the old batch with corner logos, so I am leaving them for now. I'm not sure what I'll do with them. If you want one, then let me know. But besides that, that is generally for the budget options. Now, interestingly, there's also this new DaYan SMC 7x7, which stands for Super Mini Cube. This is only 56mm, and while it's a fun thing to have, it serves no real speed cubing purpose, in my opinion. I don't see anyone using it. I don't see any reason to compete with it. I haven't even got one sub 3 minute single on it, and that's like crazy for me. Every solve should be sub 3 for me on 7x7. So ultimately, this is an interesting thing to have, but it serves no speed cubing purpose, and I would only recommend getting it if you want a tiny 7x7 for the sake of having a tiny 7x7. I don't even think Chinese kids will gravitate towards it. They'll be quite happy with the Alfu V5, and I suspect we'll see Timothy Tarasenko using it very soon. So, MoYu recently released the Alfu V5, and the Alfu V5 comes in at 62mm. They released a single track, dual track, and triple track version, and they are all quite expensive, with the single track version being, well, £1 cheaper than the Alfu WRM, which has been the go-to 7x7 option for the past 3 or 4 years. This version is actually my QiYi modded version, so it's slightly improved. I made sure to get a few of these QiYi modded versions, including the UV coated ones, when I found out that the Alfu V5 would not be available in UV coating, because apparently MoYu has had some problems with bubbling on UV coating of larger cubes. QiYi seem to have managed, but MoYu have not. So if you want a UV coated MoYu 7x7, you'll have to get this QiYi mod. As I suspect that MoYu will probably be discontinuing the Alfu WRM in the next few months, I have ordered quite a few of them to keep them in stock and keep them available, but I suspect they will eventually disappear. So if you don't like the idea of your 7x7 being 2.5mm smaller than the previous best 7x7 on the market from MoYu, then I recommend getting an Alfu WRM while you still can. However, I suspect for a lot of people the Alfu V5 is going to be the best option, and even just the single track version, despite it being smaller, it does feel very nice. It's quite difficult to pop, quite difficult to lock up, and it is just a pretty good performing 7x7 for £35. So especially if you're younger, have smaller hands, and are happy with the smaller size, it feels weird at first, but I've got used to it, and obviously I'm an older cuber with bigger hands, so if I can get used to it, you probably can too. Personally, I prefer the dual track, which is £45 and has corner edge and corner core magnets. And I suspect this should be the most popular version, but it will be interesting to see the data on that. And then, of course, there is the triple track version, which has corner to edge, corner to core, and some extra feet magnets. And it feels pretty good. It's £58, so obviously it's quite expensive, but it will be worth the price for some people and something to consider. There's also, of course, the MGC, but now this has become absolutely massive compared to everything else. I mean, it was like when the Alfu WRM was released, it's like, oh, well, this is like 2.5mm smaller than the MGC, which is 67, but it's like now that's just ridiculous. 7x7s have just got so much smaller, and the MGC is just left as being like this giant 7x7 that is just out there. Nobody can really compare it anymore. But for £26, like, it is still a viable 7x7. It's just big. So I suspect most people won't use it anymore. But it's still available. So, which 7x7 should you go for? I mean, ultimately, the two choices really are the Alfu, unless you're on a budget, are really the Alfu V5 and the Alfu WRM. If you have larger hands and like larger cubes and want the absolute best 7x7, then I would recommend getting the PiCube Alfu WRM UV coated version, the core magnetic version. If you have large hands and don't want to spend like £80 and would prefer to spend something more reasonable like 36, then the regular Alfu WRM is probably the right option for you, and you should probably get it before it's too late, because MoYu probably won't keep making them. Now, if you have smaller hands and are happy with 7x7 shrinking, then I would recommend getting the dual track Alfu V5. You can also consider the single or triple track depending on your budget, but ultimately I think the dual track is better than the triple track personally, as I do for their Outrang V6 and Alsu V7. As for budget options, I'd recommend just getting the new QiYi Warrior 7x7 UV, and if you're on a real budget and can only afford £11, well, you can get the non-magnetic, non-UV coated version of this for only £11. This feels significantly better than anything else from QiYi, which is really weird because they've kept trying to release like the Spark and the Spark V2, and suddenly they bring out a budget cube which is better, and then put the logo on the corner to ruin that whole success. But as I said, if you buy one from me, there will not be a logo on the corner unless you specifically request it for some weird reason. This Warrior 7x7 UV really does feel like an excellent 7x7, and I can even see top cubers use it. Some might genuinely prefer it over the Alfu V5 and Alfu WRM. It is slightly bigger than the Alfu V5 and kind of has the sort of hollow feeling like I would expect if DaYan made a 7x7 and it was UV coated, but obviously it's from QiYi. But yeah, in general, I think Alfu V5 dual track is the best. If you have larger hands, then the Alfu WRM. If you're on a budget, QiYi Warrior 7x7, and maybe the MeiLong 7x7 V2 if you can mod it correctly. But that's basically it.